Hello, my name is Paul A. Young and I am a master chocolatier, and I'm going to make my new recipe for California prunes, and it is a California prune and peanut chocolate bar, and it only needs 4 ingredients and no baking, so anyone can make it. We have prune puree, some crunchy peanut butter or almond butter, sesame tahini if you can't have nuts or you have a nut allergy, some sea salt, and behind me some melted chocolate, and that's been on a bain-marie, a pan of hot water, just getting really soft and melted. The first thing is to take the prune puree and blend it by hand with the peanut butter. Now this is totally unsalted peanut butter, no other fats, so just look at the back of your peanut butter jar or container and make sure it isn't blended with palm oil or anything else, and just mix those together. This is crunchy peanut butter, so you get nice pieces of crunchy nut through the bar, but it works beautifully if you just want smoothness with smooth peanut butter. And just mix it through until it's all fully blended together. So you can see your prune and peanut mixed evenly, and the salt really helps. It's not a lot, it's about 5 grams of salt crushed in. And this just lifts the flavour of the peanut a lot and balances out the sweetness with the chocolate. And we all know salted caramel and salted chocolate is still on trend and hugely popular. A little bit of salt with fruit, including our lovely prunes, really does help bring out that caramelly flavour. So give that a good mix, pop those aside, and then we can add our chocolate. Now the chocolate for this is going to add the stability and make this a pliable paste to form into our bars. So all I've done is melted it in a glass bowl over hot water. Don't let the water boil or it will make your chocolate really grainy and a little bit too sandy, which you don't want. And I'm going to pour in my chocolate. There we go, it's about 200 grams of chocolate. So we're not doing anything to the chocolate other than melt it, so no tempering, which we'll talk about later when we finish the bars. Once this is blended in, we need a sheet of silicone paper, baking paper, greaseproof paper. I still say greaseproof even though it's silicone paper. And we're just going to tip out the mix onto the greaseproof paper. And at this stage, it looks way too sticky to handle. It looks really claggy, but it will set up beautifully. I'm going to leave a little bit in the bowl for me, because that's the rule. I was brought up to bake and you always leave some in the bowl and on the spoon. So another sheet on top, or if it's a large sheet of paper, fold it over, flatten it, and we're looking for about 1/2 inch thick. So rolling pin on top, level it out, and you can take a peek to check the height. But this isn't the rule really, because if you wanted a really chunky bar, then just roll it down a little bit. If you want a nice thin bar, roll it a little bit more. So that's the rolling finished, about 1/2 inch, and you pop that in the fridge for half an hour. It could be longer, so it's not a rule, minimum half an hour. I'll pop that on the side, and I have one ready chilled. You can see the difference in the texture. Peel the paper off, and you should be able to pick it up. So you should be able to peel it off the paper. There we go. A nice firm piece of what is like dough, really. And we're going to cut it. This is the good bit, because you get all the trimmings before you get the bars. So I'm going to cut it into finger length bars. Now my finished bars look like this. So they're about the size of my finger, look. But if you want them bigger or smaller, totally up to you. And just use a big knife and trim off the edges first. Now, for me, prunes are one of the most versatile ingredients, but not just because I can blend them with chocolate as a chocolatier, but because California prunes are rich, dense, highly caramelized naturally, which means when you put them into an ingredient, particularly with chocolate for me, it holds the moisture, the texture is really, really indulgent, but the flavour doesn't overpower the chocolate. You can still taste all of the prune. And that's really important. The one thing you don't want is something to taste just of chocolate or just of prune. You want them to blend together so that they complement each other really well. So hunt those California prunes out. So I was very lucky enough to go to one of the plantations in California. I saw the trees growing, I saw the prunes drying. We tried prune juice, prune puree, everything. And the flavour, I think some of it was by being there in California in the lovely summer sunshine. But the flavour was incredible. The smell of the prunes drying was like being in a vineyard. It was fantastic. So I'm cutting these into even-sized fingers. And then the exciting bit, we're going to dip them in some tempered chocolate. And I'm going to teach you how to temper chocolate. We're now going to temper our chocolate. This can be a little bit daunting, but it's also the most exciting part of chocolate making. I've got a bathroom tile on my bench. Yes, this is a bathroom tile. You don't need to go out and buy a granite slab or a marble slab. Very inexpensive, 15 quid, can you believe? From a DIY store. This is your tool for tempering, a palette knife which I'm sure you all have at home, and if you haven't got a chocolate scraper like this, you will have a wallpaper scraper somewhere. Clean please, new, not a dirty one. That was all you need, and you need some melted chocolate, again being on our pan of hot water, and the only thing to be sure about is that the chocolate in the bowl right now is 55 degrees centigrade, and you can use a thermometer to check that. And what I'm going to do is tip out nearly all of the chocolate onto our slab, and I'm going to start mixing it and spreading it. And this is going to bring the temperature of the chocolate down to 27 degrees, which is when chocolate starts to solidify and crystallise. Then we'll take it off the slab and put it back in the bowl. Tempering simply means introducing hardening crystals, which is when you see chocolate really shiny and crisp and it shrinks away from the mould and clings onto things. Without tempering, the chocolate's really cloudy and swirly and really crumbly, and it has no structure. Sounds complicated, but let me show you because it is quite straightforward. Just a touch messy. So we tip out our chocolate. It always forms this beautiful, perfect circle. I don't know why. Something scientific, I'm sure. Palette knife in the right hand, scraper in the left, and just spread the chocolate evenly and gently out. And this is cooling it down. It's allowing the chocolate to cool down quickly. Draw a circle in the chocolate. I always do this when I'm showing someone for the first time because that's where the chocolate needs to end up from the outside. So we scrape in and off. And with practice you can get really quick, but there's no need to go really quick. This is about 500 grams of chocolate, so 5 100 gram bars, and anything you don't use, because there will be some chocolate left over once you've dipped your bars, you just wrap it up, pop it somewhere cool and dark, melt it down again and use it next time. So never any waste, which we love. No waste with food is good. And we're going to keep spreading it out. This will take about 5 minutes. So now the chocolate has really cooled down and you can see it's gloopy rather than flowing. And I'm going to lift that off the slab back into my bowl. So pop that in the bowl. You can see it's much stiffer. It's started to crystallise. And then you mix the really thick cooled chocolate into the chocolate that we left in the bowl, which is still warm. So they both combine together. And what that will achieve is a temperature of about 29-30 degrees, which is called your using temperature, which means you can use the chocolate. It's lovely and fluid and runs, but when it sets, it's crisp and shiny and has a really nice silky texture. And the way we check if the chocolate is tempered is to take your palette knife, dip it in the chocolate, and then place this on the bench. And within 2 minutes or so, the chocolate on the palette knife should set beautifully with a satin sheen, no swirliness, no graininess, and be ready to dip our bars into. We dipped our palette knife in the chocolate to see if it was tempered. I'm going to hold it up. So what we see now is the chocolate has set with a satin sheen. It's not wet anymore. It's really smooth. So we know the chocolate's tempered. If it was swirly with white swirls or really sandy textured, we haven't tempered correctly. So if you know that you've got to that stage, you can move on to dipping your bars. We've got our tempered chocolate in the bowl. We've got our bars and we're going to dip them lengthways. You can dip them any way you like, but I quite like the fact that every bite will have chocolate, not just one end. So if we dip them that way, one end will have chocolate. If we dip them this way, every bite has chocolate. And I believe that every bite should have chocolate. So we take the bar, dip it in the bowl halfway up, shake, then scrape along the edge to take the excess chocolate off, place on the paper. You don't need to do this quickly, so we dip in halfway, shake, scrape off the excess chocolate, place on the paper. This is the most therapeutic thing to do for me. Place them on the paper. Keep going, and you don't need to put these in the fridge. The chocolate will set, because chocolate wants to be set at room temperature. So there's no need to put this in the fridge at all. Just give them 5 to 10 minutes and then peel them off. That's the last one in, so it's about 5 or 6 minutes work. And the first one should be set already. So I'm going to peel it off, completely set on the bottom, on the top. And the best bit, you have to try them. It's nutty, fruity, rich, indulgent, but I haven't added any butter or cream or sugar. It's all natural ingredients. Enjoy them, make them, and visit the website www.californiaprunes.co.uk for my recipe.